So Alex, welcome to the first edition of the AIM Search podcast. Thank you for joining me today. So to our listeners, we are going to be talking today about how AI is causing the cybersecurity landscape to evolve in 2025 and beyond. Now, Alex, we've obviously known each other for a few years now, but for the listeners who don't already know who you are, could you begin by giving us a bit of an introduction, please?
Firstly, thank you very much for being your first edition. I'm proud of that. I'm CEO and founder of IoT 365, first AI driving all-in-one OT cybersecurity platform powered by AI. And I will be glad to speak about me a little bit. So my background is software development and managing listed corporation around 2 decades, where I found critical damage for industrial environment because the weak points in the plants. And I started to find the good solution, that's fast deployed solution, all-in-one solution without separate parts like a Lego, IDS, SIEM, SOC, everything under different vendors. And actually 3 years before, I started to develop and to work on this platform. And the first corporation was established in United States. And we successfully deploy it today in a few critical infrastructures, few manufacturing sites, BMS, and different sectors.
Perfect. So just to summarize, make sure I got that right. It sounds like your platform's IoT 365. The platform kind of consolidates various what used to be kind of sprawled functions, SOC, SIEM, IDS, all into the kind of the one platform, of course, powered by AI as well. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Perfect. And with there obviously being kind of a lot of attention at the moment in the cybersecurity space on AI, what I want to do is ensure that we kind of got a bit of a balanced look. We don't want to kind of scare anyone about the kind of the threats that AI poses, but we also want to be looking at kind of the opportunities that AI poses. And obviously being mindful of the fact that your solution is AI powered, I think it'd be really good to start by talking about the problem and the kind of the challenges posed by AI, specifically looking at kind of the industrial space. With your expertise in this area, it'd be great to kind of hear from you. What are the main risks posed by AI at the moment as it comes to kind of industrial security?
Okay, so I'm talking on the very weak front of IoT connected devices and operation technology devices, especially once you have nothing installed, deployed, and detecting anything in your environment, and you have no EDR or firewall solutions, because we are talking about lowest level like manufacturing level, or even some cameras or IoT or medical IoT devices that you have no regular operation systems, so you cannot deploy their EDR. And once you sometimes thinking that separate wheel and separate networking, and you are okay, that's not, because you have sometimes some technician support and you don't know what is the laptop connected to your device, or somebody remotely like vendor trying to help to solve some urgent problem, but the connection is still open. You cannot even imagine what's happening on the other side. So that's a big problem, huge problem here locally. And we can see few corporations that started to raise $2 billion valuation, starting to protect and only providing something like only ideas. So that's a huge problem. On top of that, we are talking about AI. So once we are talking about big 3 players like firewalls, vendors, Checkpoint, Forti, and Palo Alto, they have a huge portfolio of cyber protection databases and ability to protect the organization, but that's only like a roof on the top. But once you're talking about the IoT, OT environment, that's almost without the protection. So we must protect that from the all vectors, because once you have even one small hole, via this hole, some hacker can actually bring the cyber attack to your organization.
Yeah. So we covered quite a few things already, and just to make sure that I've kind of understood that, and for the listeners who aren't maybe so familiar with the terminology and OT and IoT specifically, so what we're talking about and looking at there is with manufacturing, with energy, with a lot of kind of critical environments, we've got a lot of devices, IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, which are connected into the infrastructure, connected with the internet, and they often fall under the radar of some of those vendors you previously mentioned because they're kind of scanning at a high level. Your platform is looking kind of a level below. And you mentioned EDR, endpoint detection response. So a lot of these devices that are getting plugged in, which have access and run on kind of the IT network, aren't getting scanned and aren't getting secured. So if I've understood that correctly, what IoT 365 comes in and does, it detects, that's that adage of you can't secure what you can't see. It gives you visibility onto those tools or those devices, sorry, that are connected to your network and help secure them. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correctly. On top of that, you have sometimes even isolated environment, isolated operation technology environment, critical infrastructure environment. That top manager thinking, even from IT cyber or even CISO, thinking that everything is protected, everything good because they're isolated. But from my experience, I have nothing 100% isolated air gap infrastructure because you must to deploy something new. You must to update the PLC, HMI, SCADA sometimes. You must to repair, to fix, to support some even operations tasks. And these points are very weak and should be vulnerable because you started to be dependent on the source side vendors, computers, and source side IT security guys, and it's starting to be not so air gapped and full isolated mode. So that's only my adding. On top of that, absolutely agree that once you're connecting and you have connection worldwide with IoT devices like CCTV cameras or some sensors or something like that, so that's absolutely a huge problem and huge vector of cyber attacks today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess interestingly as well, the kind of more corporate kind of IT mindset probably doesn't translate necessarily as well across to this OT IoT side of things, which typically has more kind of legacy controls, legacy devices, which don't have such regular updates and patches and fixes as you get on the IT side of things. And I think one of the other kind of themes that kind of came up there is, given this asymmetric information, sometimes with some of the bigger vendors that, as you said, kind of provide firewalls, for instance, companies might be lulled into a full sense of security by thinking X company, Y company is securing this, whereas actually they're dealing at one level and they're not actually helping secure those kind of IoT, OT devices. So with that in mind, and that being, a particular problem, it'll be interesting exploring how AI and the rise of AI, particularly the use of AI by bad actors, is exacerbating this problem. You talk about a big attack surface and the attack surface growing with all these devices that are getting kind of plugged in and connected to the IT network. So talk to me, and if you can provide any real world examples you can, as to how kind of AI can exacerbate this problem, make it kind of worse to defend against.
Okay, so a huge problem today to protect the cyber to provide cybersecurity and to protect the organization from cybersecurity from cyber attacks. The huge problem is that's a huge data. Okay, so we are working with a billion petabytes, so that's something that we cannot imagine, that we cannot control the huge streaming of data, and across this data even without AI, we have huge problem to detect the correct incidents, that's correct things, that's alerts that we must to be involved and must be aware of that, and to start to involve our human resources, analysts, and whatever. So the huge problem of AI that's on top of that, that should generate much more data and to simulate fake IP addresses, for example, or fake cyber attacks like virtual array, and only based on AI engine you can protect from the AI cyber attacks. So we must be balanced here, and in our platform we are closing the gap in two vectors. Okay, so first vector, the huge problem today before we developed our solutions, that you have two or three elements in the chain of cybersecurity in the operation technology. So first layer, that's IDS. Okay, so that's something like you can actually detect, that should be like server, or that should be virtual sensor or physical sensor that's connected to your layer one to the blind spot. Okay, so you have IDS, that's IDS. I can share a little bit about the architecture, and after that I will deep in on the platform, on the AI part of that. But first things, that's actual architecture. Once you have two vendors, you can see the legacy way that was before we developed our solution. So you have sensors, IDS, but after that you have short-side aggregation servers that should be like SIEM. On top of that, many capex, capital expenses that you should be involved in to buy the hardware inside. And you have complicated architecture. Once you have significant AI generated or even regular massive cyber attacks, you have problem to transfer all the necessary data from a lower level to the short-side SIEM and or SOC. And once you can see that should be collected, normalized, and filtered. So once we are talking about IoT 365, we have only sensors, that's high distributed model, patented model that can be actually used very effectively, and very fast transfer all the packets from the lowest layer after filtering, after logics I will show and explain, to our IDS and our SIEM, IoT 365 SIEM, IoT 365 SOC. So we have our four-layer IDS system based on NVIDIA ABP model, IoT 365 machine learning, rules, false positive detection and removing. So that's automatically movement that we are building for customer. And once you are getting across million packets, you are getting one or two incidents, you should react on that. And that's actually helping to protect against AI cybersecurity attacks. For example, now I'm going to sample of our platform. I will share this. For example, you can see now at least one day, 33,000 potential events that can be actually cyber incidents. Okay, once we are involving our filtering of NVIDIA AI, we are going only to 5,000 potential threats before we are going to the fine-tuning rules automatically detected incidents. For example, you can see machine learning IP address. Okay, so you can see only 5 of that or 6 of that we detected after the removing NVIDIA, after the using NVIDIA AI filtering, after removing the false positive. And for example, imagine that you can actually connection from some bad actor that's trying to make you crazy and starting to generate fake new IP addresses. For example, 1,000 IP addresses. So regular system starting to detect that and to transfer that to the IDS, after that SIEM and SOC. So the top layers have disconnecting by the bottom layers, because it's two vendors and he can see 1,000 events. So he's thinking that something bad with IDS. Okay, and that's not one movement. So they're trying to ignore. They are starting to ignore. So currently starting to ignore the incidents of connecting new IP addresses. After the hacker seeing that starting to ignore this, he can actually to connect physically with real IP addresses, starting to proceed cyber attacks. So that's a simple instance that we can actually detect on time to remove the false positive and to bring you very, very clear detection from IDS, from your switch in the critical infrastructure, in the manufacturing, till your SOC, centralized SOC team with minimum hardware, no capex required. Again, that's actually very flexible and easy model. So that's one of the instances how we can help to protect the organization based on NVIDIA APP models that we adopted to our IoT 365 platform, adding the OT protocols on top of that.
Perfect. And we jumped ahead slightly there onto my next question, so you covered that off nicely. But to take a step back a second, so one of the kind of key issues, and correct me and elaborate if wrong, but one of the issues kind of posed by AI is the kind of proliferation or the increased attack surface, given all these kind of IoT devices. You mentioned all these kind of IP addresses that create maybe fatigue at the human level. If you've got a SOC analyst kind of manually scanning for all these sort of vulnerabilities, they might be getting, fatigue in that sense. The next question was going to be about how we can use AI for good, and you've already kind of touched on that. So from what I understand, sounds like IoT 365 automatically scans, detects, and remediates some of these vulnerabilities, therefore emancipating or reducing the need of kind of that level 1 SOC layer. Is there anything I've got wrong there? Anything you kind of wanted to elaborate on?
You're absolutely right. So we are decreasing, we are cutting significantly human resources in the operation technology SOC team, and even regular SOC teams that want to see what's happening in OT. And that's based on the very effectively automatically way of sorting, normalizing, and detecting false positive and reducing that. So that's very easy, and all under one roof, all the platform from IDS to SOC under one roof, under in the one vendor solution. So we can significantly cutting the human resources in the operation technology SOC and even regular SOC security operation center. That's actually correct, 100% correct.
Perfect, great. And I guess looking ahead, obviously it's great news for your customers and companies that are kind of employing these techniques and these tools such as IoT 365. Looking ahead to 2025 and beyond, with how quickly AI is developing, what do you think are the kind of key skills or gaps that might be, out there where, cyber practitioners have to kind of level up a little bit to understand the increased sophistication of cyber attacks given AI? Where do you think, such as the SOC analyst, is going to go to? Where do you think they can kind of level up, and how can they become more kind of effective in 2025 and beyond?
So again, I believe that the one of the biggest problem before AI cyber attacks, that's having the one hand on the full solution. So once you can see and to get the feedback from the customer directly to the vendor and to improve that and to deploy that as fast as possible in the area, that's really a good and useful platform. When you have few players, few vendors in the one chain, it's very difficult to deploy the things fastly and effectively. So that's a big problem for the SOC that you are talking about the SOC analysts. Once they seeing the problem, so they're starting to speak about that with the customer. So they have some disconnecting because customers thinking they don't want to help, but that's not so correct, because some SOC analysts help sometimes having 1,000 connected customers. So they want to see the clear detection and they want to react. They want to raise alarm. They want to send incident response team, but This must be done correctly. You cannot send 1,000 incident response team.
Yeah.
So you are very important for the vendor to hear from the SOC the inputs, to hear and to deploy. But once you have few vendors and few players in the chain, that's very complicated. So you have, for example, QRadar, Splunk, whatever, some SIEM vendor. They don't aware what's happening in IDS, like Claroty, Nozomi, Dragos, such players. And that's a huge disconnection here. So that's a huge gap. So somebody should close the gap. Once you're talking for IoT 365, I'm a CEO and founder. I try and I like to come with my legs to the factory, to the critical infrastructure, to see how we are deploying our solution, to hear from the customers what is required to be improved. So that's very important. After that, I'm come to the SOC team and asking, guys, what can be improved? But all of this, that's my power, that I can improve and to deploy that from the feedbacks. So feedbacks is very important.
So sounds like from consolidating all of these kind of tools and capabilities into the IoT 365 platform, it reduces the burden, the workload, and the kind of the frustration of SOC team. However, in looking at kind of opportunities where there might be, a need in 2025 and beyond, those kind of analysts who maybe might be done out of a job, for example, through using these tools and stuff, that kind of human layer of providing the feedback, kind of understanding the environment, understanding the needs and educating. It sounds like that's a real kind of opportunity for people that can actually really understand the sophistication, the complexity, and the need to consolidate, like with IoT 365. Sounds like that's kind of an opportunity for people really to get proficient, understand the problem, and it's more of a enterprise-wide understand the business risk. Because if you're, looking at weighing up individual vendors and they're providing a portion of the solution, whereas IoT 365 can do that end-to-end sort of security by focusing on the individual vendor and individual SIEM tool, maybe as a SOC analyst, actually taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture and understanding the thing kind of more holistically, that's where security analysts can become a bit more valuable, I guess, in 2025 and beyond. Would you agree?
Yes, but that's also a problem. That's not only helping to people that can cut the human resources significantly. Once we are talking about SOC layer 1 analyst and even partly layer 2. So the layer 1 today that's trying to involve themselves manually to update, to configure some rules. So in IoT 365, that's actually something that you don't need to do. So you can cut the human resources. So that's bad for some employees that can lose their job. But from another hand, persons could learn the new task that's based on AI generated tools or different sectors. That's not so easy to make the flip, but actually I'm talking that's not only good things that AI bring into the world, that's also cutting the human resources and somebody can lose their job, and that's somebody that's million employees worldwide, not 10 or 100 millions in decades from now.
So hopefully the companies, the customers that employ or deploy these sorts of solutions, it's a good opportunity for the people that are sitting at kind of the level 1 analyst level to, get experience with more kind of sophisticated attacks. It allows the security teams to focus on the more kind of mission critical tasks, which, in a traditional kind of SOC where they are bogged down and they've got, all different kind of vendors they're working with, they might not have that opportunity to progress up through the SOC as quickly. I guess on the positive side, the good thing is with using tools such as this, yes, of course, there's always going to be sort of job displacement, but it also provides an opportunity for people much earlier on in their careers, hopefully, to be working on more kind of mission critical tasks, I guess. So hopefully that's kind of the positives there. But I guess just to kind of wrap things up and to summarize, so obviously we've kind of talked about the problem looking specifically in the industrial space, looking at the world of kind of OT, operational technology, and IoT devices. AI poses a significant threat. given the fact that, with the increased attack surface area because of all these IoT devices, with increased sophistication of attacks, and with the use of using multiple vendors to provide all these different kind of SIEM SOC solutions, it's overburdening SOC teams with often false positives. It's creating fatigue in the SOC team, trying to deal manually with all these kind of alerts. On the good side, tools such as IoT 365 can help kind of consolidate all these tools into one platform, can help detect in real time using AI false positives, can help detect IoT devices that are in the network, connected to the network, can detect the vulnerabilities and can help remediate those. Therefore, emancipating the security team from a lot of getting bogged down with a lot of this work. Looking to the kind of the jobs of the future, unfortunately, this might mean that, at kind of a SOC level, there might lessen the need for kind of level 1 and maybe potentially level 2 analysts. Hopefully that then provides the opportunity for analysts to kind of get up to speed much quicker and focus on more mission critical tasks. Was there anything I've kind of missed off there, Alex? Anything you kind of wanted to add as a kind of a final thought?
No, you explained very, very well, better than me. That's good.
But not at all, not at all. Well, look, Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure. But last thing from me, I want to say a massive thank you. Obviously, this is a long time coming, three and a bit years in the making, Alex. So it's an absolute pleasure having you on for the first episode of the AIM Search podcast.